Hey, this is Spencer. I just wanted to make a quick video about Unreal Engine and specifically audio that you might use during game development. So we have some audio files here, some atmospheric soundscape type stuff. Let's just scope them out real quick. We got sort of jungle evening, some nice nighttime birds. We got night 2. Kind of like a spooky, scary type soundscape. So we want to implement this in our game, and there's some issues here. So if we click on this, like this one file is like 200 megabytes, like 132, 300. So these are like really long files. If we look at the properties and look at the details, it's like 13 minutes long. So it's just like a lot of data for our game, just for the atmosphere. Like all these files together is 1.13 gigabytes. So if we were trying to deploy this to a game and someone has to download it, or if we have to like if it's a VR game or something and it's going to actually be built to a head-mounted display, I mean, these files are going to be massive. Even when you import them as is, Unreal Engine does a pretty good job of compressing them down. I imported them into Unreal Engine, and it does convert them. So this, this Night 2, 136, originally 200, so it does compress it a little bit. So that helps, but I mean, it's just like outrageous. And also, just like conceptually, this, like what the audio is, it's like a soundscape. Like we don't need to listen to 13 minutes of unique jungle. It's definitely not going to be the focal point of the experience. So I just wanted to cover how you might go about trimming these down. So I imported the audio into Premiere. You could use like a any other digital audio workstation, but I'm using Premiere here. So so I have the audio files here, and let's see. So I already did the Night 2 one. I'll just kind of do it again. So let me just Night 2. We'll just make a new sequence here. And we'll just call this tutorial. All right, so here we are, Jungle Night 2. I added my audio clip. It's like 13 minutes worth of audio, and it's kind of important to know that, like, my intention is to make like a looped file out of this to optimize the audio, but also be aware that there's many parts of the one song. So like even just like by the waveform, I can tell there's like different intensities within it. So definitely within this 13-minute audio, you could have like many different little audio loops. Like this section here is quieter than like the beginning section. So I mean, just to consider what parts of the song you like. There might be parts that you don't want to use. Anyways, we want to create like a looping segment of audio here, and there's this like fade up in the beginning, which we don't really need because we can easily fade in the game engine, and also loop in the game engine. But if we use this one audio file, like we'd have to manipulate it in the engine to trim out a chunk, and then I mean, you could probably do that, but again, it's just easier to do it in Premiere here, in my opinion. So we're gonna, find a little section. I'm just gonna use the razor and, cut a section, and we'll just like, count for 5 seconds. So that was like more like 8 or 10 seconds, and I was sort of listening to it, and I can tell in this atmosphere there's like this like sounds like a creature in the distance sort of yelling, so I like kind of waited until that stopped. So that'll be my segment. I'm just gonna like move this chunk over. So we're gonna work with this chunk of audio here that we want to loop, and looping's actually like kind of easy. Nowadays there's sort of automatic ways of doing it in some software. I don't know if Premiere has that, but basically what you want to do is you want to, at the end of this little chunk of audio, you want to fade out the original, but then fade in, sorry, fade out the end, but fade in the beginning at the end, so it's like completely seamless. So, you know, I'm gonna let it play for a little bit to give me like a fade in duration. So a couple seconds there, I'm gonna cut that. I'm gonna select this and copy the little chunk, and I'll paste it over here, and then I'll bring this back down here, right? So the end is gonna be the same as the beginning, and I'm gonna go to effects. We'll use constant power to fade out, and constant power to fade in. And I'll just like zoom in here a little bit, and we'll just stretch this back, and we'll stretch this out here, and I'll stop the fade out like right, like so that there is like full volume at the very end there. So now this is like our loopable audio segment. So now if I, you know, delete the rest of this audio, we don't need these chunks. I can copy this whole chunk, and if I just paste it a bunch of times, it's like looping. And then to check, you know, if it loops properly, you can go to any of these transition points and just listen to see, you know, whether you can detect the loop. If you close your eyes, it makes it easier. Yeah, so I can't even tell that it's looping, right? So that's really just like how, you know, you create the loop. This was sort of just a test. And again, we don't want to export or save out a file that's really long in duration. That's going to increase our file size. We just want to use the little loop, and then we want the game engine to loop it for us. So we're going to set the in point here. I'm going to delete this other chunk. At the end, we'll go back one, we'll go out. Oh, and the distinction, sorry, just to show what I did there. I went to the beginning of my clip, I said press I to set my in point. And if you go to the out end of your clip and you set out, if you zoom in really far, you can see there's like one frame of audio. It's just the way Premiere does its out point, right? So even if you snap to the end and you press O to out, it like gives you one extra frame. You don't want that, so you go back one frame and press out, and then now your clip is like exactly at the end. So that gives us our little audio chunk, and then yeah, then we can export this out. So I'm gonna File, Export Media. Over here, we're gonna, in the format, select waveform audio. 16-bit is good for Unreal, I think, that's fine. And we also have the opportunity to compress our audio, so we're gonna go with IMA ADPC. I didn't actually, it's kind of the first time I'm doing this looping audio thing for Unreal, but like I didn't really know about the compression codecs there, but I did look up in their documentation, and it's supported. It's fine. I mean, audio's pretty common in Unreal, so you know, I think even at this file size, uncompressed would be fine, but we might as well compress it, get it as small as possible. Yeah, and then we'll just save where this needs to go, and we'll save it here. Audio tutorial, save and export. Cool. So that saved my little audio file. So now if we have a look over here, this is my first test, but this is the tutorial one I just exported, and we're at 358 kilobytes. So we've gone down from 200 megabytes to 358 kilobytes to get this little piece of, like less than a megabyte, of this little piece of ambient looped audio. And quality-wise, yeah, can't even tell it's compressed. It sounds just as good as the original. So definitely want to do this process. We also have, I did test it in Unreal to see if it loops, so I already loaded it in, you don't have to worry about that, but let's just listen for a moment to see and feel the atmosphere. Yeah, so can't even hear where the loop point is, and we've just saved us a ton of space, so it's like hugely beneficial optimization thing. So yeah, that's just a good way of preparing your audio for your game development. And also, I mean, it also, this whole like process also forces you to like conceptualize where you want what audio within your game, right? So if you have like an environment and there's different spots in the environment and the level Like you kind of got to think of like, okay, well, what atmosphere do I want to play, or do I want the to be playing in what part of the environment? And it might be as simple as just I have background music throughout the whole thing, then great. But you certainly don't want a 5 minute song playing because that could be several megabytes, or if it's a waveform file, several hundred megabytes. So there's just ways to loop it, and yeah, something to consider. Thanks.